What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Helpful Hubs. As always, my name is Joffrey, and joining me on the line is our Lord of Lies and Savior, Felix. What's up?
Of course. Hey, how you guys doing? Lord of Lies. Well, this one's sticking with me, I guess. It's
Yeah, never
the
going to beat the
allegation.
allegations.
All
Exactly.
right.
Felix, I'm so excited to be recording this video because Organized Play season has officially started. We're getting glimpses of competitive sorcery in a more stable meta now. More people know what's up. And we get to the exciting parts of the season where you can try and predict the field, pick your deck accordingly, etc. So we're recording this on Monday. And just over the weekend, we had the first ever grand contest held in Washington, D.C. I think it was more than 70 players, something like that. But there were also two other mid-sized tournaments between 30 and 40 players, one in Houston, Texas, called Battle of Midland, and one down under in Melbourne, Australia, where plenty of games had their cornerstone over the weekend. So we have another 9 rounds of competitive sorcery to look at from our colleagues on the other side of the globe. So we want to strike the iron while it's hot. So we're not going to spread these out over multiple videos. We're just going to cover all 3 events today. We're going to look at the top 8 archetypes, the deck lists if they're interesting, and we're going to do a little bit of a heat map of these archetypes and see where they placed on the meta tier list that we did 2 months ago. So first video of this channel, basically it's like we're getting our homework graded. It's like, were we good at predicting the meta? And then hopefully this will give you, a factual understanding of what's good right now. We have to give a massive shout out to Bruce at Golden Eagle Cards for collecting some of these deck lists. You might be used to getting your top 8 updates from Bruce. We actually reached out before making the video, and he mentioned that he wasn't necessarily planning on doing it this time around. So we were like, we can definitely review that. We'd be happy to.
Yep.
I think this is something that we'll enjoy doing, and so thanks again, Bruce, for the deck lists. And yeah, I think with all that being said, we can just jump into it. All right, we're going to start with the biggest one. We're going to start with the first ever grand contest that was in Washington, D.C. I think it was 70-something players. So we're not getting to the 100, 120 that, we might have had for some of the Crossroads last year. But I think that makes sense. It's the first one. It was announced relatively recently. And so, not everyone can make the trip on such short notice. And also we know there's going to be multiple all over. So 70 plus seems like a reasonable size. And it's obviously the first really official organized play event at that level. This being the first grand contest and the Melbourne cornerstone being the first cornerstone.
True. Still, we see some familiar faces on these pictures. Pete.
Yeah.
Is there going to be ever going to be an event where Pete is not going to be there physically and play sorcery? I doubt it.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think he has a reputation to go and try and attend all of the events that he can. So let's see.
Shout out to Pete.
If we look at, so we're not going to jump in the top 8 just yet. Let's look at, because we have some info charts, so we might as well use them. If we look at the field, I think unsurprisingly the most representative avatar was Necromancer. But the runner-up, Geomancer, was a bit surprising to me. Have you seen many Geomancers around?
All right, yeah, Necromancer not being super outstanding here as the most played avatar, obviously. I do think there's a gap between online play and paper play. I think the meta that is evolving online is not particularly the same in paper, so Geomancer might be a bit surprising. I think the one that is a little bit more surprising for me is the Sorcerer with Garden of Eden out there.
Yeah.
That's an avatar I wasn't really expecting to be that good, to be honest.
Yeah, we did put it in the S tier when we did the tier list, so yeah, it's tough to say. I think the one that surprises me most and the one that I thought you would talk about is actually Persecutor. What is that doing here?
Yeah, I mean, that's also even more Persecutors than Battle Mages is interesting. Honestly, I'm more concerned about playing against the Battle Mage. I think Persecutor might be a little bit weaker. Well, probably depends on the deck itself and the matchup. But overall, I think Battle Mage might have had better win rates online than compared to Persecutor. Also interesting is like Imposter. Imposter's like a deck that is like an avatar that's really picking up, especially lately. They had like multiple brews in all colors basically, and people really like playing Imposter. Not seeing it that represented here in Washington is surprising.
Yeah, is that just the one? Actually, I wonder. I think they were. Oh, yeah, there was a mishap in the data earlier, so I just refreshed the page. I think I remember seeing that on Discord. So, picture looks a little bit different. And obviously, one imposter felt very low. 3 is still pretty low, though. So,
It is. I mean, it's still like a fair amount of players, right? 70. I would expect at least 10 imposters, to be honest.
yeah, that's a good point. Maybe different meta, maybe. Yeah. I mean, Geomancer being so high is surprising.
Yeah. I guess the sample size is still like so low that if like a group of friends they show up and they all decided on the same deck, like Geomancer, and just messes around with the numbers a little bit.
Yeah, and so we're gonna take a look at the top 8, but we're gonna place it on the tier list that we did 2 months ago, so that hopefully it's a little bit more visual, and then we can also get a sense of like whether the tier list we did 2 months ago is still relevant or if things have changed too much. So let's jump right into it. You might recognize this view. This was the final snapshot at the end of the video. And what we did is we placed the top 8 from Washington, D.C., the grand contest, in the snapshot that we had at the time. Now, for some of them, we had to be a little bit creative because you'll see that like some of the decks did not play the color combination that we expected. And so I took some creative liberties in placing them on the map. But generally, it gives you a really good idea of how the meta played out at Washington, D.C. And something that's quite surprising to me, especially having reviewed the field data, is we saw Geomancer and Sorcerer being the runner-ups to Necromancer. But you'll see that in the top 8, there was no Sorcerer, no Geomancer. So a 0% conversion for the second and third most played avatar is really surprising to me.
Yeah, it's true. It's surprising that like no Geomancer made it in, which is also surprising as usually the amount of players that pick up Archimago isn't too high, but it seems like there's like the 2 to 3 Archimago players that are there, they always gonna reach the top 8. So looks like it's still an avatar that people don't really want to play, but people that do like playing Archimago, they do fairly good with it.
Yeah, so we don't have the end of the chart here, but I believe there might have been just the one Archimago, and so 100% conversion. I believe this is piloted by Mike. I want to say his last name is Herbig, and he's been playing Archimago now for, I want to say, close to a year. I know he definitely placed well with Archimago in an event last year. I can't remember which one exactly, but not your brand new pilot to the deck. So maybe that's why.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's look at the podium, right? So for these, because we're doing all 3 events today, some events do 3rd and 4th place match, some don't. In doubt, I just put the 3rd place for both the 3rd and 4th player. Maybe they did play the 3rd place match and maybe there's a 3rd and a 4th, but you can consider that like these 2 medal with a 3 is basically 3rd place and 4th place. So unsurprisingly, Necromancer, Air Water took down the whole thing. And we even had a second copy of the deck. Obviously not exactly the same deck list, some tweaks player by player. But we had a second copy on the podium at 3rd place. So already one of the S tier deck that we identified 2 months ago is taking down the tournament, but also placing, having multiple copies in the top 8.
Yeah, I think it's going to be true till the end of the Gothic season. It's just like such a strong deck, and it's also more easy to pick up, and it got so much attention because CJ plays very well with it early on in Gothic. So I think a lot of people just like stick to the good Necromancer, and we're gonna just see like a lot of people bring the deck to a tournament, which automatically means there's a good chance we're gonna see this deck in the top 8.
Yeah. So we're going to take a quick look at the list that won. We're not going to cover it in depth because it's pretty close to stock list. We'll talk about the picks that changed from what we usually see in these types of decks. But if you want to get like a better understanding of how the deck works, etc., please go to CJ's video. He covers a deck list that is pretty similar. You'll get the gist of it. We do, however, want to talk about the couple of changes that this player did. So this player, I think, online goes by the Nick Greengills, and he kind of has his own spin on the deck. Mostly what I want to talk about is the 2 Salmon of Knowledge, because it's not a card that you usually see in the deck.
Yeah. Can you scroll a little bit further down? I want to see if there's a Garden of Eden in the deck. There's not. Right?
There's not, yeah. So he's leaning a little bit more into the Salmon, the manuscript, and probably he's not liking the tension with Garden. There's 2 Hyper Parasite that are usually in the maybes for the deck, but not necessarily stock. And the 2 Master Storeworm, which is obviously a great water card, but you usually play it if you expect a water-heavy field. And I mean, it clearly worked out. Green Gills won the event, but I wouldn't say this is something that I would expect to see in a Necro Air Water list.
Yeah, I do like Hyper Parasite a lot. I was not so huge when the card was new, especially in decks that have movement spells or Avatar for Air that can just throw it around for free. I think it's pretty great. It deals with anything that has ward. It's a great tempo play. So if you fall a little bit behind, you can just play the Hyper Parasite on your side, pick up the minion that you have troubles dealing with, and like have a tempo swing there. Do like the card. I'm not so sure about the Master Stormworms. I'm not sure. Besides the floodplains, do you have any other way of enabling the Master Stormworm to attack on an enemy surface?
I don't think so. I guess it might be just a defensive play where it can hold down the fort. Let's see, if there's no meat hook to bring it over, I guess maybe you're just trying to like grab your opponent with Riptides and Nixies and just bring them into your body of water so that you can swing at them.
Yeah,
that's one option. Fair. So other spicy inclusion is the full playset of Treat Up Hideouts, which I assume is there to protect some of these minions that otherwise are a little bit exposed. A Succubus tends to die after doing its thing one time. Maybe the Treat Up gives it a second life. The same for the Hyper Parasite. You know, you disable a minion. If you can then hide the Parasite, you can eat that minion safely and then maybe pick up another one later. So I assume that's what the intent is. Notable exclusions to make room for these new cards. We don't see a Pied Piper. We don't see I Know. So some cards that are pretty powerful. Pied Piper great against token lists. I Know just pretty great overall, but obviously you have to make room for the new stuff. So I guess these were the cuts.
Fair. I think if you're just not afraid of token list, you can easily cut the Pied Piper with the I Know. I would honestly like playing I Know a lot. I would say she's very cuttable. She looked like very strong in the beginning. It's not doing that great anymore lately for me. So yeah, I do like it.
And then we have the second copy of the deck that placed, third or fourth. I don't know if they played a third place match. But this one is way more stock. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if it's close to 1-to-1 with some of the lists that have been published from previous tournaments. So not as much to talk about here.
Looks like there's a little bit more fixing on the sides of the castles. Besides that, looks like the stock list.
Maybe. I know CJ had them for a while, so. The one bureau specifically, like when I read that, I'm like, oh, that looks like a CJ lift, because I think he was on one bureau, which I found awkward. Anyway, very, very much a stock list, but obviously a very, very strong deck. Yeah. So not surprised to see it on the podium. Now, the big surprise for me, and we talked about it when we reviewed the field, is the presence of this Persecutor list. And I cheekily put it in between these two because we actually didn't cover the specific color combination that the Persecutor player played. I think we mostly had in mind Airfire and Earthfire at the time. And I think Yeah, second place was a Steam Persecutor. So this is from Emperor Igor. And it looks very much like what you would expect your standard Steam list to be. So, that could be Imposter, etc. But I think the fact that you're putting Persecutor at the helm means you can really stack all of these direct damage spells. Things like Lava Flow, Fire Breathing, can really deal tons of damage once you're, on top of your opponent's avatar.
Two thoughts that I have for this. First of all, I really like seeing Steam back in the meta. I think it's still a great deck you can display. I'm not sure if Persecutor would be my choice of avatar. But yeah, Steam is definitely viable. Caesar, Aquavane, we talked about it in our last video. Great to have him back. And for Persecutor himself, I think free Lava Flow, Mesmerism, and I would even go free Poison Novas is the reason why you want to play Persecutor. Lava Flow is such an amazing card, such a tempo swing. So versatile, amazing. I like it.
Yeah. I mean, as an Archimago player, if I see this list, I'm shitting my pants because I don't know what Archie does against that. So much direct damage that it's going to be really hard to just always find an answer, honestly. If you don't see your healing, you're just toast. And even if you do see your healing, I assume... Oh, there's no River of... Oh, no, 2 River of Blood, yeah. 2 River of Blood. You're facing Bureau. 2 Mismanaged Mortuary. Like, that sounds an absolute nightmare for the Archimago.
Look for the artifacts. There's the rack we talked about as well.
So scary. I really like this. I think this has tons of potential. So really happy to see.
I think it's my favorite list we have seen so far.
Yeah. So that's roughly... Oh, yeah. And so to finish the podium, third, fourth is an Air-Water Druid. Was piloted by Cameron. Again, very much what I would call a stock list. I think there are a couple of spicy additions, but that's 5% of the deck maybe. You see a Rack, which is pretty uncommon in Druid. You see Horn, and then two Legions of Gaul. I think that's about it, spice-wise.
Yeah. Those are all great cards, and I do like Druid currently, as we have so much tokens in our meta. So backside of Druid is pretty amazing against that. Also, just Drums of Doom is a hard card to deal with for most of the mid-rangey beefy minion decks. Yeah.
Agreed. Bit of tension. We see the Adept Illusionist versus the Mismanaged Mortuary. That can be a bit of a nombo, but maybe it didn't come up. So that's a lot of Air Water. I'm sure you've noticed, apart from Persecutor, we're really looking at 3 Air Water deck in the top 4. Now, if we extend our analysis to the 5th to 8th place, we get a little bit more diversity. So we're going to see the lone Archimago. Again, I'm not going to call it a stock list, pretty close to what you're used to see. We talked about Archimago Earthfire on this channel, so if you want to deeper dive on how the deck plays, I would invite you to look at this video. But this is your standard, run-of-the-mill Archimago. 40 plus spells, a bunch of control-y minions, and 2 Omphalos. That's the job.
And one Purbeck seems to have bigger balls than us. He's running double guards, not afraid of the White Piper, and it looks like at least the guy from the finals who won was also not running it. So
it's true.
I guess that was the correct call.
And the cut here being the Assorted Animals package, which, to be honest, I can see that. I can see that.
Yep.
Then we had a Mud List Necromancer. So I believe this has also been reviewed on YouTube by the creator. I believe the name of the channel is Curio Cavern TV. So I would invite you to check it out. You can hear directly from the source. But that was a cool list to look at. Quite different. Playing all of the beefy Earth and Water minion, 2 Lord of Greeds, 2 Regurgitator. This is heavy stuff. You're using the token in the early game. Tufted Turtle to make sure you have a good density of 3 mana minions. And then all the big stuff. Titan, Seraphim, Nature. This is Teamy land.
Yeah. The reason why I never really like playing myself is because it's so awkward having to decide, do you want to play Earthquakes? Do you want to play Call of the Sea?
Yeah.
How is it going with your Bury versus Drown effects? And he kind of shifted all his removal besides the Call of the Sea, to its minion package. So you're going to see butterflies, you're going to see all the hyperparasites, all the gargantulas, and you don't really worry about being on an earth or water side anymore. Just
48 minions, extremely high. Like, usually even aggro decks tops are like 40. And then we had, to round up the top 8, we had a mono water Pathfinder. I'm not going to spend too much time on it because I think it's pretty standard. These are decks that you could have seen piloted by PK in the Season 2 of the Summit final. I think Isham Online has also been playing a version of this list. It's all the good water cards. You make sure you get to 6 mana on turn 6 because you're Pathfinder. You even have a bunch of like mix aquas to make sure you get to the good stuff early. It's really impressive. It's very linear to some extent, apart from if you hit a mix. But the card quality is just so much higher than your opponent most of the time. And then the last one is Imposter. This was a Steam list, which we did not place in our tier list. I think the 3 versions of Imposter we reviewed were Earth Fire, Water Air, and Air Fire. I think if we had to place it at the time, we'd probably have put it in like that second tier of Imposter decks in B. Because we were pretty vocal about the 2 best version being Earth Fire and Air Water. But B is still very respectable, and obviously you can do really well on a B tier deck in my opinion. And this was the list. And so again, a Steam list, so you're going to see very similar minion to the Persecutor. Obviously not as many lava flows, etc., because you're not necessarily going to be on top of them. But the minion package is extremely similar.
The beauty with Steam is that you're not too reliant on the avatar that you play. Most of the times, or good percentage of the times, you just run with the cards from your spell package, and you don't necessarily need your avatar, so you're a bit more flexible.
Yeah, I agree. I think something that the Steam list usually do really well that's a little bit more awkward for this deck is they would normally be really well placed to play things like Mortuary or the Core Crematory to, counter an Archie or something like this. Because you're Imposter, you actually also want to play with your graveyard. So you can't really run these cards. And so the only cards you can play as hate are the ones where you can make sure it hits your opponent only. So the Hyena, the Funeral Pyre. But you're not going to see a Mortuary in this list, which is quite interesting. And that was the Grand Contest, Washington, D.C. I think if you take a bird's eye view on this, there's quite a lot of B and C tiers that made it. There's also a pretty good concentration of S tier decks. But there's this whole group of decks that we put in A tiers that were obviously there in a tournament, but just didn't manage to sneak in the top 8. Geomancer, one of the most representative avatars, couldn't convert. We didn't see any AOA. Usually you always have the 1 or 2 AOA in the top 8, which was surprising not to see, and no Sorcerer this time.
Yeah, I think if I would grade it, I would give us a B minus maybe. Sometimes you cannot really do too much about Persecutors sneaking in and steal a podium.
And we've always said, right, a C tier or a B tier, it doesn't mean you can't win a tournament. If it's your pet deck and you have tons of experience on it, if anything, you're going to have the surprise factor. So
also, if we placed the Interrogator in the category, if we see an Interrogator in the top 8, I'm not losing my mind, to be honest.
Oh, you know what? I might. I think Interrogator for me is nah, dog.
Let's say you have a 50 player Grand Contest, and so you're gonna play 6 or 7 rounds, and you just go 5-2. I can see that.
Okay, but then when I review it, I'd be like, all right, this guy got lucky.
Well, obviously, yeah.
So that was it for the Grand Contest, Washington, D.C. Congratulations to the players that played top 8. And it's great to see some of these new takes on certain archetypes. Now let's go down under. We're going to go to the Cornerstone that was held at Plenty of Games in Melbourne, Australia. Obviously, Cornerstone's a bit of a step down, and roughly half of the players of the Grand Contest, so 36 players here. I mean, at a glance, you'll see it's a pretty tight range, right? It's S tier to B tier deck. But you'll see that the top 4 is actually not in the S tier category. The top 4 for the event were 2 Geomancer, 1 Enchantress, and 1 Pathfinder, which I creatively put in the middle of these 2. because it was actually a dual color Pathfinder list. So Earth, Fire, piloted
Really?
by Jesse. Yeah. Yeah, and I'll have questions to you on that list when we get to it. But the first thing that comes to mind when I look at the heat map of the deck is the top 4 was entirely Earth Fire. So we're getting a very different view than what we saw at the Grand Contest in Washington, right?
Yeah, it looks like Earth Fire seems to be the state of the art currently for Sorcery. If you're tired of playing Water, you switch to Earth Fire. I mean, I did as well, so can understand. I'm still surprised Geomancer is that popular.
Yeah, and it's doing really well. I mean, obviously it didn't convert into the top 8 for Washington, but here you had 2 Water Air Necro in the top 8, and it looked like they were stopped by some of the Earth Fire decks. And I think this is something that we've talked about, right?
Yeah.
At the beginning, in January, February, Necro was like the boogeyman. Everyone was on Water something because Water was just so good. And then we saw that shift in like March, April towards those big Earth decks because they actually have really good matchups into Water Air. You play beefy minions, and at some point Necro, runs out of ways to remove them. You do have to be careful about the thin ice, etc. You have to play quite smart. But if you're gonna ramp into a Craterwise, there's not much Necro can do about it.
I think the decks are quite similar in the way they play. They are really consistent.
Yeah.
In a certain way, and really always kind of nail down their match plan.
Yeah.
I'm a bit surprised by Enchantress, especially in the colors. Earth is the color that I don't really expect to see in most of the Enchantress, because the auras are maybe not as powerful as in other colors. So we look
Let's jump into the deck list. I can show you what it looks like. I don't think we have all the deck lists, but we have the ones that matter the most. So let's jump into it. This is the winner's deck list. This is piloted by Davide, goes by Morgothian online. He's actually, fun fact, he is the 3rd Archimago Rainbow Fall recipient, along with us too. So friend of the channel.
He's part of our tribe.
He's the OG Cabal. So Geomancer, Earthfire, which is the one that we kind of called out as like A tier. I mean, it's a pretty standard list for Geomancer, right? You're going to play all of the beefy, sticky Earth minion. They either have wards or they do something when they enter. So you get something right away. And then you have a bit of a fire splash to play Kobolds, because always good if you can line it up with a Gigantism. And Major, Nova, Baylor, Death Dealer. So all of these big swingy removal cards.
I think that it's very standard. What I do like a lot is the Roots of Yggdrasil free win from time to time.
We talked a little bit about it in our last video. We want to see the Geomancer actually play Roots, and Davide is on our side here.
Yeah, definitely. You still get games where your opponent has the Aura of the Sacred Oak or something. Like Vindictive Nation would be pretty terrible, but you just don't pop it then and win with your A game. So totally fair. Interesting that so many lists won Atlas Wanderers, which is something you don't see too much here in Europe.
Yeah. So there's one thing to note about the tournament. Maybe I should have talked about it when we were on the tier list page. You see 2 Funeral Pyre here in Davide's list. So that tournament actually had a custom ban and restriction list where you were only allowed 1 copy of Divine Healing, I believe. So I think the consensus from players was, well, we might not see that many Archimagos as a result. I actually don't know if there were any at the tournament. For sure there weren't any in the top 8. But that could influence your decision. And maybe that's a reason why the Earthfire decks did so well. Because typically Archimago has a pretty favorable matchup into any kind of decks that's Earthfire, in my opinion.
Yeah,
there are some exceptions, but
that's why we see the betrayal from Walk. He wasn't allowed to run the Archimago, basically, right?
So that's the Geomancer. We can look at Jesse's list. So that's the Pathfinder Earthfire. So you can see some of the side destruction package. You have the Blaze, you have Salt the Earth, you have Year of the Blaze as well. So really playing almost the full package, except not full playset of these.
Yeah.
And otherwise, it's kind of like your typical Earthfire minion package, right? If you look at the minions, this is something you would see in an imposter list, like the one we reviewed on the channel.
I think last year I was wanting something similar for during an IRA league. I just had the Pilgrims in, I think, and the Globes, just for a little bit more card draw here and there. But he wants Garden of Eden. It doesn't always have to happen, but when it happens, pretty bad. Fun fact for the Year of the Place, I think it's a very legit card.
Yeah,
Especially if you won. Has he won Common Senses in this list? It doesn't seem like he does.
No,
He does not. But still, you get it. Most likely a Hamlet's place or Castle place in between. So chances your opponent wastes his Dispel Disenchant just to get rid of these or for something else. Flame of the first one, maybe Year of the Place can just like wreck the game. And with Pathfinder, you don't really worry about getting to 7 mana at some point.
You also have Peasant Revolt, which we talked about as like one of those cards that we would like to see played more. I think this is a great deck for it. We do need to talk about the fact that this list is 2-color. And I think our initial view for Pathfinder is you'll have better results if you stick to 1 color. And obviously that didn't prevent Jesse from doing well in a tournament. But when I see something like a Mazouj Ifrit, right? The time you want to play this is on curve. It's on turn 3.
Yeah.
Right? And this is 2 fire thresholds. And I'm thinking, same with the Dragonets, like, well, how often can you not play what you want? Because you have to manage these 2 different colors.
Yeah.
And you have no control on what you flip. That scares me.
Yeah.
Like
Same for me. I mean, the upside with Michael is just so high. I think you can just include it in on Pathfinder. You usually don't grind out on cards. So you can just have it as a dead card for a little bit, and it's going to be great late game anyways. It's okay.
He's 50-50 on Earth and Fire. That means what? On average, you need 8 sides to hit Michael?
It's rough. I guess. But I think the Ifrit is the big one for me. Ifrit, I'm also not so sure about Kobolds if you don't want any trinkets, to be honest.
So
it's just one of it doesn't really do too much. It's just one of fair. What I like about Earth Fire earlier, or the deck, I think it was also a guy from Australia. Is a henchman from Australia? I think he is.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. And he was running a list with, I mentioned earlier, with the Lopes and the Pilgrims. And that just allows you to play a little bit more defensive. You don't necessarily have to go in the middle of the board early on, because you just have the Globes, you have the Pilgrims, you kind of want to go to the side. Your opponent spends an extra turn to make room for his minions to move up. And so you have a little bit more time, especially if you maybe hit a Root Spider, just to like develop your late game a little bit more safely. And
I think this list feels more like tempo and aggressive. I think Henchman's list was more like, it was fine taking longer.
I mean, he was doing great, and Jesse's obviously a great player, also a good deck builder. He was probably just going for, right, maybe I just feel lucky today and go with it.
Yeah, I think Henchman might have been from New Zealand, not Australia. I'm not sure.
I'm sorry, Henchman. Wherever you're from, you had a great deck. I enjoyed playing it.
Let's quickly look at the Enchantress. So again, Earthfire, you're going to see a lot of the similar minion. Your aura count is 16, which I think is about as low as I would like to go when it comes to Enchantress. I think my sweet spot is like 16 to 20. And I think it's kind of a mid-range deck. Like, you're not really looking to play control. You're actually playing some pretty beefy minion. And you're going to try to assemble one of those like crazy turn. You have Warp Spasm, Blaze of Glory, Gigantism, Shadow Strike. You're basically trying to like stick one of those like big boost spell, like Gigantism or Warp Spasm, on a beefy aura, like a 4 ideally, maybe a 5 with a Rest in Peace. And then try to double that with a Blaze of Glory or a Shatter in that same turn. It's very
100% agree, which is why I would honestly argue Air is the better color, because you can bring in Whirling Blades and Grapple Shot. And on top of that, you might have better auras compared to Earth.
So you would do Airfire?
I do Airfire.
I don't know. I like Earth because it gives you the stability of Earth's early game. Like, you're never going to get that many 2-drop in Airfire. You're going to play the Violent, and often you don't even want to play them on 2. Here you can go a Leprechaun, you can go like Redemption. I'm surprised not to see Sister Stefania. I think she can do some cool stuff with the auras. I don't know.
I like it. You can bring in the Perilous Bridge to be a little bit defensive, and you also have the towers that just ramp your turn 2, turn 3 play, which is mostly one of the better minions, or maybe a turn 3 into turn 4 hour.
Like
And
the
I think
3
that
droughts. Someone was ready for
Yeah.
water.
Yeah. The fun fact is, like, surprisingly, it's not even that amazing often against water decks. You think, oh my god, you have a drought, they just completely suffer. But yeah,
It's a good aura they can animate later.
it's still,
right?
yeah, for sure. Free ceiling in that.
Yeah. And then we can look at some of the necro decks that seem to hit the wall when it comes to Earthfire, but they're pretty
Yeah.
stuck, honestly. Like, it's
Yeah,
the kind of
just-
list that we've seen. Yeah. Like, this is
Sleep.
Zul, who's been doing really well online, but honestly, there's not a single card that I think stands out as being quite different.
No, it's okay. If you want to see a water air necromancer, you just type in sorcery in YouTube and click any video. It's probably
You'll see one.
video. Yeah.
And then there was a battle mage, Airfire, so quite aggressive. And very much artifact driven. 24 artifacts. And honestly, against some deck, I think that would work really well. But I could see the big beefy minions of Earthfire being an issue for that deck.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes you hit the first strike thing and just eat through the beefy minions.
Yeah. As obviously the rack, etc. I'm sure you can have some very explosive turns, the rack, grapple shot, and co. But
I think that's battle mage for me in a nutshell is always, it can be outrageous powerful, but more often it's just.
And then the final tournament that we had over the weekend was in Texas, Battle for Midland, 33 players. So again, a good mid-sized tournament. And I don't know what they do in Texas, but there were 2 big surprises for me in that top 8. We can talk about the winner, right? This is the Archimago list piloted by Pork Chop Sandwiches. And they have a video up on the Duo's YouTube channel, so Sorcery was Duo, where they talk about the deck for 45 minutes. So please do go to them directly. You can hear it directly from the source, and they'll give you a lot more insights than we can. But good to see that we're saying Archimago.
You guys gonna hear for free how to pronounce Ersatzplatz. It's not Ersatzplatz or whatever.
Yeah, so they brought a cool new tech, or actually a couple new techs to the deck. They are adding Ersatzplatz. Am I pronouncing it better than they are? Who knows? And then the 2 Mirage. They'll tell you about all the tricks you can do with it, but it's quite a new take on the archetype. And they have to make a couple changes as a result. Generally, the core of the deck is the same, but I do think they cooked something quite different on that front. Excited to see how far
they already won my heart with Simorian, one of my favorite decks.
Now, if we continue going through the list, second place was the Imposter Earthfire. Third and fourth were 2 water air decks. So again, I think everyone sees the trend here. And then 5 to 8 is where things get a little bit wild. We have a second copy of Druid. We have an Avatar of Air, as we often do in this top 8, the 1 or 2 Avatar of Air. And then there was a Monofire Harbinger and a Mono Air Dragon Lord.
I really want to talk about this one.
Yeah, so let's go through the top dogs first. We quickly looked at the Archimago list. We'll let you go to Duo's video. This was the Imposter Earthfire list. I think this is a deck that we've played extensively, right? Earthfire Imposter. This list is quite different. I think he has some more beefy minion.
Definitely not inspired by anything you see somewhere else, I would say. It looks like that's a very original brew.
Yeah.
Cage of Sidrak is also a card you don't really see too often.
Yeah.
Driftwood Marrow?
So I think this was piloted by Marcus. I think Marcus has water PTSD because he's running 3 Droughts main deck and 3 Driftwood Marrows. So
honestly, I don't think that's a bad call.
But you really have to expect like 50% plus water. Right?
And if you look at how many water necros were there? Like 50% of the field were necros, something like that?
We don't think we have the field data for Texas, but
it's gonna be a good amount, yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
And worst thing, it's a free power minion for free, right? the driftwood, so it's not the end of
yeah.
it.
No, that's true. That's true. And then big minions, some of the removal that you would expect: Earthquake, Gigantism. Generally, I think this deck can punch quickly. Like you see Gigantism and Duel in the same, you're like, okay, I see what's going on here.
I want to have a look in the collection. I think is also an interesting one. Is it something outrageous here? Savior is a little bit unusual, but besides that, it's the standard package of avatars you want to bring with these colors. Fair
No
enough.
Death Speaker is interesting because you are playing Gargantula.
It's true.
It's a good one.
True.
Right?
Yeah. Is there a Violent in the list?
There's
This
the Vendel,
the other one.
his lesser-known cousin.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting. River
Yeah.
of Blood, not playing Divine Healing.
This is one of the two Druid lists. Pretty standard. There is again the Cage of Sidrak. Maybe, I don't know, maybe Texas has a minion,
there might be a guy in Texas
low minion problem.
Yeah. Who's terrorizing with his tokens.
Yeah. But the rest of the list seems pretty standard to me. Yeah, we've seen that shell multiple times already. I think there was... Okay, this is another Druid list. Is there anything to note on this one? I think it's also pretty standard. There's a Nivell Twin that you don't see very often.
It's not a card that you see too much
true.
anymore.
Chaos Sister. There we go. There we go.
That might be the reason for the name of the deck.
But yeah, I think like 95% of the list is it's pretty similar. And then we get to...
I like to see that people do that actually, to be honest, not just copy paste and move it forever.
That's the AOA list. Mono Air, which is interesting. But I believe a pretty similar deck. So I think this player had won a Rainbow Fall on AOA before. I want to say in a Crossroads last year, probably Houston.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought Casey was the only one.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
And I think already at the time, they were on some of these like weaker, mono air minions. Weaker as in like, low mana, low power.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it seems like the deck has been updated for Gothic, but generally in the same style.
Again, the wreck. Interesting. I like it.
That's the Necromancer Air Water. Seen it a ton. Is there anything of note? Mix? You don't see Mix and Core too often in Necro usually.
Yeah, it's a Monty Python fan with Tim the Enchanter. Straight from there, like it.
But I think the rest of this is pretty...
Something that maybe it's just me missing out, but Hyper Parasite looks like a card that is very often copied in the new water lists. I haven't seen it before, to be honest, that much. First time I see that many people bring it.
Yeah, could be getting better now that, the decks are getting bigger, all big Earth Fire shells. If you can disable something big, it can be pretty impactful. And then we get to the Two and Spice list, which I will admit were nowhere near our meta tier list. And so I had to make them a little bit of a box to the side just to fit them in.
To be honest, I knew that player is going to be top 8.
Wait, do you know who that is?
Yeah, I do know the player. It's the and only Sun God.
That's him. So this is a mono air Dragon Lord list. It's using, what's his name? The Bondkite, as its kind of like dragon for the Dragon Lord ability. So again, the ability says, deal 3 damage to each other. You tap, deal 3 damage to each other unit at target nearby location. And you summon a skeleton token there for each unit that died. And believe it or not, this is the only list that took a game off of the winning list, the Archimago. So the Archimago lost to this deck in the Swiss round. And honestly, I can totally see it. Like, if you're Archimago, what do you do if you have a Dragon Lord that every turn is gonna like breathe dragon fire at you?
Yeah, and also the stuff that you play is most likely going to die to the Bone Kite, and it's gonna be a skeleton for your opponent. So yeah.
I love to see it. Look at how low the curve is.
Yeah.
Actually,
it is also
let's look at here. The chart ends at 4. I've never seen this before.
He's just spamming cards. My man, Sun God. But I think it's something you see your opponent out the Dragon Lord and has the Bone Kite Dragon, especially like in the very first rounds, you might be
shit your pants.
A little bit tempted to say, maybe that's be not too meta, and maybe it might be not too experienced player, if you know what
Yeah,
Say.
but then they start going bolt, missile,
They
bolt,
just
missile.
exactly out of nowhere you're at 10 and kind of fall behind bad.
Play the River of Blood off color just for the healing.
Yep.
Impair Road, you get some minions from your side. No, honestly, it's exciting. I love it.
Could we expect a deck like that to have more non-color sides? I mean, we have 2 Imperial Roads, we have the River of Blood. Yeah, maybe that's it.
Yeah, you do need to hit 3, right? It's like you have Barrage, Browse,
Fair.
Merlin, so I think it's about as much as you can do. And then the other one is Modifier Harbinger, which I think the name of the deck is very appropriate because it's Harbinger. If you roll your dice really well and you have like a modifier list, honestly, that sounds pretty scary. But if they're all going to be in your back row, you're like, what do I do now? This list is 45 minions. And most of them stop at 4. You have just the one boogeyman at 6. And then all of the spells are either removing blockers, removing card from your opponent's hand, or just stealing stuff with Infiltrate, Betrayal. And again, like, that can totally take some decks off guard. Like, this can go so quick.
I know, but also I think most decks are a little prepared to eventually play against this hyper-aggressive fire deck.
But not necessarily one that can drop minions on top of your face, right? Like, a lot of these decks would have answers in the shape of like a Gnome Hollow second row or like a Perilous Bridge or... What if the Harbinger rolls right next to you or on top of you?
Yeah, don't get me wrong, it can just like completely work. You call it high roll, and it's pretty hit the nails, I think, because if you have a bigger tournament, you have to play 7 rounds of Swiss. I can see you winning 4 of them. I can maybe see you winning 5 of them, but I think that's where it stops for me. Yeah, I mean, if you enjoy playing these kinds of decks, which fair, Harbinger is a fun group with these kinds of fire minions for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I love it. The fact that we had not 1 but 2 of these like hyper aggressive avatars make top 8 in what seems to be like a pretty competitive scene, right? Like we know some of these names.
Yeah,
I think it's a great testament to the scene they have down there and creativity of some of these players.
I think Monstrous Line might be my favorite. If you have like a good roll of Monstrous Line for your portals and you have a turn-free Monstrous Line charging your face,
what do you do, right?
Yeah, play the Lion King.
All right, and that's going to be it for today. So we reviewed 3 big tournaments, quite different meta depending on, where you look in the world, but I think we see some of the trends. Earthfire seems to be working really well. We still have all of the air water shells doing, pretty good, even if they might have a bit of a hard time against some of the Earthfire decks. And, Sorcery is still an amazing game where if you bring a totally creative new brew that no one expects, you can still do really well on a day and play top 8. And I'm glad we got to see a little bit of everything today.
Dragonlord is my favorite.
Here we go.
Glad you did it.
We promise that we'll always put Dragonlord in our tier list going forward. We will not disrespect the Dragonlord ever again.
Never, ever.
On that note, we will leave you with that. Until next time, take care.
You.